Welcome to Beyond the Strikes, and I'm delighted to say we're joined by your new favourite fighter, Reece McEwan. Reece, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks very much. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And you're fighting next month at a stacked Cage Warriors card. I think it's in Manchester. How are the preparations going?
Yeah, preparations are going well. I'm still 4 weeks out, so I'm yeah deep into the preparations. But nah, it's going really well. Yeah,
Well, last time out, you had a brilliant victory against Kingsley Crawford. Real tough fight with some nice highlight reel moments in there. What are your thoughts on the fight?
yeah. The fight was obviously good. I performed well. I'd done some things that I'd done some good things and I'd done some not so good things. I took a lot away from the fight. So since the fight, I've just kind of obviously went back to the gym and started working on the weaknesses and building on my strengths. So it was a good performance and it was a good venue to be at, and it was a good fight as well.
Yeah, it was a really good fight. Would you say he's your toughest opponent to date?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He was the highest like ranked opponent that I had, and at the biggest stage. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome. And it feels like after every fight, it feels like you're getting closer and closer to a shot at the title. Have you had any conversations with the promotion about a title shot, or is it still focusing on that one fight at a time?
Yeah, I'm just going to let my fighting do the talking and take each fight as it is. Like, words mean and even actions out that mean absolutely nothing if you don't go in one fight. So I'm just focused on Adam Wilson on the 12th of November, doing what I do best, and that will speak volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you keep hitting people with them head kicks, and that absolutely speaks volumes there.
Yeah, I know. Adam Wilson's got like 5'10", so I'll get my stretches on. I'm joking, but no, that goes is about. But every fight, like you've got to not not that you've got to, but it's good to have highlight reels. Like my first fight, it was like a submission in the last 30 seconds after a back and forth fight, and then my second fight with Cage Warriors, I obviously got that kind of highlight reel knockout. It wasn't knockout shot, but it was a highlight reel head kick.
Mhm.
Yeah, creating building that highlight reel obviously helps along the way and putting on a performance for everyone. But at the end of the day, like you said, in terms of like titles and stuff, I'll have goals in my head, but it's meaningless if I don't prepare and I don't go and win my next fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going right back to the start, where did you grow up and how did you originally get into combat sports?
I'm from a town in Scotland called Greenock, so anytime you're in another country, you say like where you're from, you just say it's a town outside Glasgow. We don't really know what Greenock is, but it's about maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour away from Glasgow. So, and in terms of martial arts, I watched the UFC on TV, and I just seen that and I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be really good at that as well, actually. Um, and like that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the UFC and Ultimate Fighter. That's the program that got me into it. And then maybe a couple of years later, or about a year later, I was faced with a situation outside where I couldn't defend myself at all. I was so terrified and I lacked so much confidence. I had no confidence at all that I physically couldn't even speak just to like defend myself. And my friends had to kind of come in and prevent me from getting beat up. So I said after that night I would never let that happen again. And if I was ever confronted with a situation that I'd be able to actually have the confidence just to speak up. Um, so those two kind of things mixed together led me to an MMA gym, and then obviously with that kind of, I always call it that kind of deluded mindset, thinking I could be a world champion at the start. I said if I'm actually going to go and do that, I need to do it properly, and I googled the best MMA gym in Scotland, and that led me to the Grip House. And then obviously from being at the Grip House, it led me to training in Greenock at a gym called Inverclyde Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Um, and I've obviously never moved anywhere else since.
Yeah, and I mean Scottish MMA, it seems like every time, every big card, there's someone from Scotland who's on it. Have you noticed a difference in MMA in Scotland? Is it kind of getting bigger and bigger?
Yeah, I definitely think it's grown. 100% it's grown. Like you look at even in the last few years, like the people fighting in the UFC, like Stevie Ray's fighting for a PFL world title at the end of this year for $1 million. You get even like the one person I can relate to massively is like Chris Duncan.
Hmm.
Like he was maybe like two fights ahead of me on the circuit and on the scene. He's fought in Bellator. He fought in Dana White's Contender Series. Like, but I remember actually having a conversation with Chris before my second fight, and he had like 4 or 5 fights at the time. And to me, he was like, so in a sense, like we've came through together. Don't train together. We're completely different. Like, we're not in the same team and stuff. But and now he's on going from that wee local show, and I think it was Airdrie, to then, and he was talking about his fight in Sterling, to then go and fight in Dana White Contender Series, like what, 6 years later. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're big fans of Chris. He's been on the show a couple of times, and we're totally with you. He's like a truly inspirational fighter, and I think he really has paved the way for a lot of people again. And yeah, it's great to see that he's so inspiring. And can you remember the first fight you remember watching?
Yeah, actually, I do. So the very first event that I watched, I think it was like UFC 112 or 113, and it was Lyoto Machida and Shogun Rua, the rematch.
Right, yeah.
I was watching the build up. This was the first one I watched live. I was watching the build up, and the build up was all talking about how Machida beat Shogun, but Shogun won the fight, so Machida got robbed.
Yeah.
Then I watched this rematch thinking this was going to be a class fight, and then I think, is it Shogun that won the rematch?
Yeah, I think I was trying to remember back. I remember the like the rivalry was brilliant, and the kind of build up to all of those fights were great. Like two really iconic fighters.
Yeah, and then the same kind of circuit, I think it was like Rampage Jackson fought Rashad Evans, and then the one after that was like Chuck Liddell and Rich Franklin, and then it was like Lesnar, like I think Lesnar fought like 116, sorry. So yeah, that was the first fight that I watched live.
Yeah, it was a really good time, I think, for UFC. There's like you mentioned some of those names, and I mean, like Lesnar. I think when I speak to people, he's one of those fighters that it kind of helped push MMA to mainstream. There are so many people who knew him before, and as soon as he started getting into it, it was yeah, just one of those huge names that attracted people. Has there been any particular fighter that you've always made sure you've watched?
Okay, obviously not like maybe in the last, since I started training, you would just have an appreciation for anyone, and you would watch the majority of the cards. At the time when I first started, it was Chuck Liddell, because the first season that I watched was season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter, because it was on like ESPN Classic.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I was watching this maybe way in it, like this was like a historic show. So I thought Chuck Liddell was obviously the man at the time. So I always I thought he was invincible. And then, like I said, I watched the fight with Rich Franklin and he got knocked out. And then I done a wee bit more research and I realised, wait, hold on a minute. This show that I've been watching is a class. You know, I started getting a wee bit more informed about the sport, and I realised that Chuck Liddell was on like a 4-fight losing streak. Like, what is going on? But now I've just got an appreciation for a lot of fighters. Like maybe in the last, not in the last few years, but when I started competing, McGregor was without a doubt probably the most influential and inspiring to me anyway, because again, that's a European fighter that's went and done the blueprint. Like, he's created the blueprint, sorry, for us fighters, and let's be serious, that the way that he changed the sport is like nobody else has done before.
Yeah, totally with you. I think I think McGregor's one of those fighters that he probably won't get the respect he deserves until he's retired, until a few years after, and people will look back and realise the huge impact he actually had on MMA. And we talk about taking MMA to the mainstream. I don't think anyone's ever done it more than him. That Aldo fight, that like 9-second knockout, it kind of just, yeah, it sent shockwaves everywhere, and it just became front page straight away. So I'm with you. I'm a big McGregor fan, but I think it's not fashionable at the moment to be a McGregor fan. But
yeah, no, totally. But he would get people who don't even know what MMA was watching. Like, if you say, like, even now, if I say like, oh, I'm an MMA fighter, and they go, is that, they either say, is that the like UFC, or you have to, if they don't know what the UFC is, you say, do you know who Conor McGregor is? So like, that's how big he is. And there's an interview of him where he's in the cage, just finished training, and he's doing like an interview. I think it's with John Gooden, and he's like, everybody wants paid, everybody wants the money that I'm getting, but nobody's willing to put in the work. And I always remember that interview, because I'm like, it's so right. You don't just see this guy that's on stand. He's not been given anything. He's worked for everything. Obviously, like in the last few years, he's been inactive, but in the period of 2013 to 2016, it's incomparable.
yeah, totally with you. We'll have to catch up the next when McGregor's back. We'll catch up and we'll appreciate him together. That'll be good.
I don't want him to come back. I don't want him. He's done everything. He's actually He's done everything he set out. Like everything that he wants to achieve, he done it plus more. Why come back? Why come
No,
back?
it's true, and it's kind of. I was thinking of fights that he can come back to, and he seems like he's happy at the weight he's at. So I think the only really fight I can think of that would come back and maybe exciting would be Masvidal or someone as big as that. But even then, it's like you say, it's he doesn't need the money. So where do you go after that fight? And yeah, I think there's a reason he's kind of hesitating in coming back. I think that the hook just isn't quite there at the moment.
And that's totally fair enough. Like I said, he's UFC Cage Warriors world champ to weight divisions, UFC world champ to weight divisions. Then he went and fought Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Come on, like what more can you achieve in the sport? Winning a Cage Warriors world title and then winning a UFC world title is good enough. Never mind it in two weight classes. Like brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely with you. And honestly, it's been a real pleasure catching up with you today. It really has. We're big fans of you, and we'll be supporting you whenever you're fighting. Try and get to some of your fights as well. And final question we have is, what do you want to achieve in the next, say, 5 years time? In 5 years?
I used to always I think about that like 5 years time, but obviously the 5 year goal becomes irrelevant if you don't think about day to day, week by week, or fight by fight. But in the next 5 years, I would like to be a Cage Warriors bantamweight world champion and fighting in the UFC. And I would say UFC world champion as well. But I do appreciate how hard it is to build yourself up in terms of like the rankings and building experience. I'm still so young, so I would be 32 in that sense. So in 5 years' time, Cage Warriors world champ, fighting in the UFC on a good win streak, and then if you ask me that in 5 years' time, then I'll say UFC world champ.
Absolutely. I think, and 32 is coming into prime. It's like starting the prime age. So yeah, got plenty
exactly.
of years to get to that. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And but if the Cage Warriors, the Cage Warriors world champ is obviously in touching distance for me. But like I said, like I'm not looking past any opponent. I could be 1, 2, 3 wins away. I'm not sure, but that's the key thing here. Your wins away, you need to win fights, and that's where all my attention's going to.
Yeah, totally with you on that. Well, all the best wishes for the upcoming fight in Manchester. We'll be supporting. And again, honestly, thank you so much for your time and speak soon.
No, thank you so much. Have a nice day.